I'm going to pull up the cloud. What you see here is an overview of what I've configured already. So I have a couple of clusters that I've created here. You can see where the nodes are for those particular clusters. I have the ability to create a new cluster. So I can specify some key considerations here. So I want this to be a global application, something I hear commonly. I want this to be leveraging my AWS account so that I'm deploying easily and intuitively into the respective regions that are most applicable for me. I can both select that through some type ahead functionality here, as well as visually on the map. But we support a wide selection of different regions there. You can actually see as I'm going through and I'm setting up and configuring these different regions, some of the information on what's being set up under the covers. Things like IP ranges, VPCs, having that VPC peering. So really reducing the time and complexity that it takes to set these key considerations up. So I can specify different versions of Postgres. In this case, I want to use 15, but maybe I want to use 16. If I know what type of horsepower I need, maybe I have a heavy workload, I may need to spin up something a little bit larger. I have the flexibility of doing that. If I already have some key pair access configured for my AWS account, I can specify my key pair here, and I can easily and intuitively access my created resources. I also have the ability to specify or reduce the access to the end deployed resources so that, say, for me, since I'm doing the actual development, I only want to have access to it. I can do that. This is being designed in a manner that's flexible to your business requirements. So as the application evolves, as you move to production environment, maybe you want to just have your application servers open to the wild and your data layer in an internal network. The way in which the pgEdge platform is setting up and configuring these components makes it easy and flexible to adapt to your specific business requirements. And then from there, I can deploy that cluster. What you're going to see is a set of resources that are then being set up. What those steps are, very fast. I mean, realistically speaking, we're looking at 5-6 minutes to set it up, and what you get on the output of that is your key information on the cluster, the nodes associated to that cluster, some of the core metrics for those setup resources. So I have visualization both at the aggregate level across all of my nodes, as well as on the specific node level. So instead of me having to go to a specific external tool or to each of the servers individually, I have that kind of central location that I can work from. Now, that said, many of our customers have pre-existing visualization tools that they'd like to use. And in that case, that's fine. We can make those metrics available as well to those, no problem at all. We also have the ability to do some level of troubleshooting and review of the actual servers there. So you can see here, I've got both my server level logging as well as my Postgres logging. So I can actually dig into what's transpiring there if there is some type of maintenance or evaluation that I need to do. But if I'm actually to dig one layer deeper, so I'm setting up these clusters, what's actually happening under the covers with AWS. So what you see here is, this is my AWS instance. You can see I have deployed resources here. It's when I go through that process of hitting that deploy configuration, it's really simplifying that setup and configuration of the different compute that I need, the different security around the VPC, the IP configuration, the route table. So as another example here, let me just pull up VPC that you can see here, the one that literally I just stood up now. Another example here, you can see kind of that resource map of the different components that are being set up. Like, honestly, after I went through the process of using the pgEdge Cloud, I never went back to setting up manually, because there's just so many different ways that pgEdge Cloud is accelerating the deployment, the setup, the security of my infrastructure, that it just reduces my time tremendously. And it pulls out like those manual error-prone steps, because it's easy for me to screw up a subnet or a route table or something along the lines of that. By having it automated based on my configuration settings, it really reduces the chance of error. It really ensures that the deployed resources are interconnected in the manner that are needed, that I can be assured that my data layer is where it needs to be. So it's really powerful part of the platform. I can't stress enough how this has been tremendously helpful for me, because I just honestly I can't go back to the original way, because it's just setting up manually just takes too much time. I want it to be ready in a matter of minutes. So that said, once it's ready, like, how do you handle that resiliency, that data resiliency, that application resiliency? So back to that use case that I mentioned, you have users in the US, you have users in the European Union. It's really common, right? For that, I might have respective data nodes close to my end users. Maybe I have a tranche of users in the West or the East of the US and in the EU. And what I want is the best latency for those end users. I want low latency. I want quick access. I want that responsiveness to the user's interactions. But that said, as Philip mentioned, sometimes situations arise, regions go down, and I don't want my end users to be penalized because of these challenges that a cloud provider may have. I want the application to be resilient and still running in the case of some type of catastrophic issue, such that an actual region goes down. So what I actually want to do is I actually want to walk you through this use case and how pgEdge simplifies the configuration setup and fail tolerance that's required for a modern application. So that said, I have an application, so I built out that application tier. This is on top of the pgEdge database. So let me log in real quickly. Now, a couple things to note about this application. I'm leveraging the Northwind database. Really wanted a set of data that everybody's familiar with, right? So you're going to see within the application things like employees and products, because we're sitting on top of that database. I configured this in a 3-node cluster, like what we set up just minutes ago. We have a US West, East, and EU West multi-master configuration. And this is emblematic of that application layer. Ultimately, there's multiple ways in which you can handle the application layer. You can leverage DNS, you can leverage connection strings. This is just one example to show you the flexibility of the data layer. Now, when I load in, you're going to see a couple of key pieces of information here. One, I've got the different sections aligned to my Northwind database. I have a visibility into my current cluster. I have 3 different nodes as a part of that cluster here in my US West, US East, and EU West, and you can kind of see them visually located here on that map. I have the ability to pull up information on specific employees, right? So I can select that employee number. You can see reflected information for that particular employee. And as I'm accessing each of these specific nodes, you're going to see here which node I'm currently interacting with. I also have the ability to make changes to this information. So as an example, Nancy's number is wrong in this case. Let me update that real quickly. I can quickly update that. And what you're going to see is that that data is being replicated across all nodes within my configuration here. Now, this is multi-master, so each of these nodes are both read and write, so I can make a change to US East as well. But before I do that, what I'd actually like to do is reflect what would happen in the case of, let's say, a region goes down. So let me go back to my, let me set this up. So what I'll do is I'm going to make a quick change to some data in the US West node. I'm going to take that node down, and how I'm going to reflect that zone, that region being down, is I'm going to take down my EC2 instance, right? So that node is no longer available, representative of what that catastrophic failure for that region may effectively look like. So with that said, let me go ahead and pull up my environment here. Let me make a quick change to my employee phone number. So different. Update that. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to go ahead and stop my instance there. So now just double check. It's no longer in a running state. I'm going to come back to my application here. The application's been designed in a way to validate the current status of the nodes, as well as to redirect to the next closest node in the case of that catastrophic failure situation. Great thing is pgEdge platform actually has a variety of APIs that would actually give you distance to user. We're not capturing the user information, actually you're passing that in, right? So knowing that I'm in that greater Los Angeles area, my closest node was that US West, that's no longer available. It's redirecting me to that US East. Now, let me pull up the employee information there. In this case, what I'd like to do is I'd like to make some change to this, right? I'm not having to promote a read node. In this case, this is a multi-master configuration. It is already doing the replication. It is immediately on. There is no downtime for my end user, right? The latency here, as you can see, still highly performant application, as would be expected with a modern application. So I come in here, I take a look at my information for that user in Europe as well, also has that reflected change in there. Now that I've made that, what I want to do is, okay, now perfect. The user's experience is excellent, but that said, what I'd like to do is I'd actually like to bring my West server back up. In the end, AWS, Azure GCP was able to fix that problem. That server is now functional. So what I'll do is I'll just pop back into EC2 here, into AWS here, and I'll start that instance. Now, what I want to see happen here is I want my data to be reflected, as the data changes that I had to also be reflected in my West node, right? So I want there to be that consistency in data, even that ability to handle that disaster circumstance. As well, I want to be redirected back to the next closest node using the latest and greatest data. So let me go ahead and refresh my application here. You'll notice that that node is now back up. I'm being redirected to that. Let me go ahead and pull up the information on my employee, and already the data has been replicated over. Now, this is really great. Like, I'm not promoting read-only nodes. I am using that multi-master configuration within pgEdge to really simplify my data layer, get it at the edge, close to my end users, but tolerant to the inevitable circumstances that are going to arise